all in Chicago there, a lot of like what you saw with Chud last year. And I think this speaks to Mike Pettine this year and the difference in him. You can say what you want, same old Browns. I think you're just being snarky if you say that, because I think there's clear differences in the way the organization is handling things now than the way they did in the past. In the past, you wouldn't hear about this stuff from the team. You'd hear about it from other people, but the team would never address it. They'd never do anything about it. The team is being out front with this stuff here, which is different. That is different, and I'm telling you, things will be addressed. Examples will be made, and we're going to get into all that and all the fun shenanigans from over the weekend. But Trestman in Chicago, you saw a lot of what you saw with Judd. You saw a lot of what happens with rookies as head coaches. They get run over by everything. It's too much stuff for them to handle. They delegate the wrong things, and then they delegate big things. They fall apart. You see what happened with Aaron Kromer, where he basically snaked his quarterback and went and talked about him behind his back to the media and was the unnamed source, and then had to come clean and admit that it was him that was nailing his quarterback out in the media like that, and all the stuff that was going on there. Nuts. And I know I saw ESPN speculating Mike Singletary. I'll tell you what, that's a name that I would think would be high because of his popularity amongst that fan base there, and he had some success when he was the 49ers head coach before. I could see some interest there. I don't know if there would be interest by the team, though. I don't know that they're going to be looking to follow up. I mean, you had the stability of a guy like Lovey for so long that I don't know if that organization, I think it was a culture shock for them after having a steady presence like that, to then have a rookie head coach that was just completely overwhelmed with everything like we saw with Mark Trestman. But I like Trestman. I thought that I still think he could be an offensive coordinator in the NFL. But, I mean, he clearly, first time around, wasn't close to ready for all of the problems that come with being a head coach in the NFL. Mike Smith fired from the Falcons, as we saw. That was a team that went from being on the verge of a Super Bowl just a couple of seasons ago. Show you how fickle the NFL can be, just like that. You know, you fall off the edge, and now here you see a team that's kind of got, I'll tell you, they're definitely underachievers because they got a truckload of talent. If you think that's not a good team that Atlanta has, then you're nuts, man. It's not constructed well. There's things that can be obviously done differently. You can change things, but they've got, especially in the skill positions, man, they got talent. That's for sure. You know, but anyways, Mike Smith is well gone. You kind of knew that was coming when he mismanaged that clock at the end of that Browns game. You're like, man, this is a guy who is playing out the string here. When we saw that with them the other day, and of course Rex Ryan, John Idzik gone from New York as the carousel of coaches continue. That was one that I was amazed it took as long as it did. You guys know Rex Ryan, far from one of my favorite coaches around the NFL, and he as well will be gone, as will his general manager, and they'll be wiping the slate clean there in New York. One place that they won't be wiping the slate clean is here in Cleveland, and I can't lie. I had talked to some people. Now, this was not directly from Berea over the weekend. I talked to some people that were telling me what they were hearing, and I was getting worried for the future. I'm talking the now future of the Cleveland Browns, because there were some people that thought there were legitimately some risks to the coaching staff coming out of this season. And I will say that from who I got it from, I do believe that a little bit of it was there. I think that any doubts, though, that the Browns had about Mike Pettine were answered in the way the team showed up and played yesterday. Look at the difference between how they played out the string for Chud and how they didn't play out the string for Chud. And then look at what they did yesterday. And Mike Pettine, man, was he pissed yesterday after that game. He said, I'm not talking about everybody else. I'm talking about the guys who went out there and did it and played today. And Joe Hayden, hey, say what you want. Joe Hayden showed some guts in what was basically a meaningless game yesterday. Already hurt, had every excuse to pack it in for the season. He was out there playing. Then he got hurt with the flu, first off. Then he got hurt. and he came back in the game again after he got hurt. If you don't think that that is an example that you want to teach to your young players, then I don't know that you and I can ever agree about football, because that right there is what you want every young player on that team seeing and idolizing. Not idiots like Josh Gordon, not head case on a call. The whole Manziel circus mania that comes with that guy and his whole deal, all of that stuff. That's not what I'm telling you. And this is where I get into not the same old, not business as usual for the Browns. You've got the same garbage going on, that's for sure. You've got players attempting the same crap that has always happened here since the Browns came back. First time in a long time. There's actually people attempting at least to address this, at least people in the organization. That's where I'm saying, guys, how many years have the Browns organization been the ostrich with its head in the sand? Move along, nothing to see here. And the media, as bad as I criticize the media, when they do ask the few relevant questions at the end of the season, no comments, everything's denied. The only stuff that comes out is the unnamed stuff, the guys that get cut that then want to come out and talk, but you never get it. Like, this is, hey, man, you don't see guys suspended. You might see guys where they'll be like, yeah, well, this guy wasn't playing for the last week of the season to teach him a lesson. But you don't see guys blatantly suspended. The Browns smacked Josh Gordon in the face every bit as hard as he smacked them. They said, you know what? For those of you that don't realize, by the Browns suspending Josh Gordon for missing practice the other day, that enabled the Browns to get an entire year of restricted free agency out of Josh Gordon. So he will now have 2 years of team control instead of 1. And that goes a long way to adding to his value for a trade, which I'm telling you is coming in the offseason. I have no doubt in my mind. I'm 100% sure that Josh Gordon will not be a member of the Cleveland Browns when we hit training camp. And I've got to be honest with you, and it's coming from not only my insight, but what I've heard from a couple of people already. 50-50 at best is the odds. If you're a Manziel fan, 50-50 at best are the odds that man comes back with this team next year. That has nothing to do with my personal beliefs, likes, dislikes, any of that stuff when it comes to John Manziel. I'm telling you that the organization is at the point internally where they are weighing risk-reward to see if even if the best of what you could get from this man is worth what you may have to go through to get there. The Browns are very, very quickly going to extricate themselves from this situation, and I have no doubt about that whatsoever. There's people that want the Browns to do it yesterday. You do got to realize that there are such things. First off, I got to be honest with you. I don't advocate from an organizational standpoint blatantly cutting these guys if you can reap some assets from them. I mean, hey, I'm just being real. You don't cut off your nose to spite your face if you're looking at it from the Browns team. People say, well, what can you get? I get you. You're not going to get a first-round pick for Cats. But if you're going to trade Josh Gordon, it's better to get a fifth-round pick for Josh Gordon than to cut him. It takes you an extra 2 weeks. So what? That's fine. What, because you didn't spite him by saying you're cut? It's for all intents and purposes, that's what you're doing. But you're at least recouping some of your assets here. Same thing with Manziel. I'll tell you now, I don't know what you do with Manziel, because you can't tell me that there's a team in the NFL. And I know John McMullen, if he was here right now, he'd argue with me. He has a higher viewing of the way the NFL views Manziel. Nuts. What general manager is going to give the Browns a third-round pick even for Manziel? Really? Do you think there's a general manager out there right now that would there may be, but I don't think so. I think Manziel, if you were to part ways, and again, I'm not just advocating, he had a bad 7 quarters, so kick him to the curb. I'm advocating, what is his ceiling, and is it worth the garbage that you have to go through to get there? And if the answer is no, then don't waste another month, don't waste another year, move on from the process, because Johnny Football didn't just make himself look bad the way he played on the field, the way he acted all season, the way he looked when it finally came down to it, the way he quit and faked. I'm sorry. Some people say, you can't accuse a player of that. Okay, he didn't fake an injury. He just he definitely embraced the opportunity for his season to be over. That's my belief, and you can't convince me otherwise. That was the most convenient injury this side of the Mississippi. That's all I'm going to say. The stink of failure doesn't smell as bad when it's attached to an injury qualification. Regardless, the stink of failure is all over that. But that's not just it. It's like I said, it's measuring the top end of where you're trying to get to and what you have to go through to get there and figuring out if those things are worth it or not. Connor Shaw, with his undrafted pedigree and spending the season on the practice squad, did a decent job yesterday. But what he really did yesterday was show how far from real Johnny Manziel is, because you can talk about rookies and not being ready, and I'll give you that. And of course, guys need games to get. Look, Connor Shaw didn't do anything spectacular yesterday at all. All he did was show me that he could be groomed into a decent backup quarterback, and anything beyond that is gravy as far as I'm concerned. So, but guess what? Johnny Manziel wasn't close to that. He, being Shaw, was light years away from what Manziel was in both of their first forays. And I would go so far as to say that I'd rather faced well, you say what you want about Cincinnati, but the Ravens defense is no joke. And I think I'd have rather faced the Cincinnati defense than the Ravens defense, especially with the ups and downs of that defense this season. Either way, it's not the stats, numbers, all of that stuff, just the basic competence of running the offense in and out and all of that showed something right there. And that is the brilliant light. You can say, oh, well, some guys get it sooner than others. Listen, fine. Let him get it somewhere else. Seriously, how many of them come back to make us pay? Seriously, guys. I like Colt McCoy. He hasn't exactly come back to kick sand in the Browns' face over the last few seasons. What I'm saying is for all of you that say, good, let Josh Gordon and Johnny Manziel come back and stomp the Browns on other teams. Yes, let that happen, okay? I'm willing to bet that that's not going to happen. You bet that it will. I'm willing to bet that it won't. But I'm not willing to sacrifice the next couple of years of growth of a team that is growing, a team that is developing. I don't care what anybody says. If you don't think that's the case, then you don't want it to be the case, because this team made strides this season. This team developed this season. Mike Pettine is the right coach. Look at rookie head coaches. Look at what happened to Chud last year. Like I said with Mark Trestman at the beginning of this, look at what Mike Pettine dealt with the garbage circus around Johnny Manziel from the beginning, and all of the other things that happen to every coach, the injuries, the depth issues, all of that stuff. He survived it all and came out the back end of it with a team that was still running through a wall for him. That says to me, you got the right coach. We'll work on other pieces. We'll work on that, but you got the right coach. And I was very happy right after the game to hear that's the first thing Jimmy Haslam said is they're not going anywhere. Now, obviously, he can change his mind tomorrow, but I'm going to assume that he won't be, because that was the move to make. You had to do that. You had to ensure the fan base and the players and everybody right off the bat, relax. We're coming back with these guys again next year. And I do believe that the way the team showed up last week and in Carolina went a long way towards reassuring trigger figure Haslam that he doesn't need to pull the trigger that quickly on getting rid of another coach, and it definitely bought some time. That's going to be key. Let's move into year 2 with a coach and a general manager and a system. And I do believe that Mike Pettine will have much more involvement in the draft process this year than he did last year, because now those guys, Farmer and Pettine, have had a year to work together. Farmer was hit and miss, as we know, in the draft. For as much as I liked his other draft rounds, the first round kills you. Definitely kills you right off the bat. But I think Pettine will have more influence this year because he knows the kind of guys he needs. He's going to be able to say, I need this end. I need this backer. I need this to plug into my defense. So hopefully that'll tweak the team's draft strategy as well. We got a lot to talk about with the Browns and yesterday's game. I've got Dan Wismar coming up. I've had the phone lines blowing up like crazy. Let's go to him right now. I've got the first caller on hold in the queue right now. Caller, kick us off on the Sports Fix.
Hello.
Hello, caller. You're live.
How you doing?
Good. How you doing? Who's this? Who is this? Where you calling from?
This is Kevin Dix calling from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
What's up, Kevin? How you doing? New caller, first time.
Yes, it's the first time call. I've been talking to you on Facebook about coming on to my show, but being a Browns fan, I'm a little concerned about the issues with Johnny Manziel. I'm not a big fan of his, and I know that getting some draft choices probably fifth, sixth, or seventh round, looking like if we would get anything for him. But I know, in my personal opinion, that Johnny Manziel was more of an owner's pick than the manager's, the general manager, or the coach's pick. What do you think on that?
Say that again?